Well, the sprint, it was a complete depiction of what I just said. Argy bargy, a lot of chaos. Peter Sagan saw a tiny gap on the side of the road between
Well, no,
Wout
no,
van
no,
Aert
no,
and the
no.
barriers.
Sagan forced that gap open. He forced
He
his way
saw
in
a
there
tiny
like he.
gap and he created a bigger gap.
Okay,
There
let's
was
put
a
it that way.
small gap. He created a bigger gap. And that did not go over too well with anybody, Alex.
Well, we've seen Sagan do this before. He gets all, gets tough and throws his elbows out. Some sprinters do that. Fine, I get it. And I've let out guys in sprints that and get involved in that. And there's room for it. You can have some discretion, but the way Sagan bulls his way through, he's literally like a bull in a china shop. And sometimes he gets away with it, but there's a line that he crosses, more often than not. And this time he crossed it.
And Alex, for my money, this isn't the way that Sagan sprinted when he was younger, but it seemed like you pull on 3 world championship jerseys in a row, and he just got a little bit of an attitude, a chip on his shoulder, and he saw that as a, carte blanche. He can go wherever he wants in the peloton, and he can move people out of his way. But the grips are tightening. The UCI, the race commissaires, they are being ever more vigilant about safety and holding your line in sprints. The perfect example of why that is a very, very necessary rule is Fabio Jakobsen's crash just last month. So Peter Sagan, he saw this little gap and he just shoulder checked Wout van Aert, and complete credit to Wout van Aert. These guys, as you said, there is a lot of physicality in sprinting. That's just the nature of the game, especially in the modern era of cycling. And it is, speaking from experience, it is very startling when you get a hit like that when you're going 60k an hour in a bike race. But all these guys at the top of their game, they are just so focused on getting to the finish line. And Wout van Aert, he barely reacts, at least until after he crosses the line. He takes it in stride. All these guys are so solid on a bike. They can handle their bikes so well. Wout van Aert, the cyclocross background can't hurt in that respect.
Yeah.
But Sagan, he pushed it. He went a little bit too over the line. Do you agree with the commissaire's decision that he needed to be relegated? Because that's what happened. He came in second in the sprint, but was relegated all the way to dead last.
Yeah, in my mind, Sagan is a fucking ass. I mean, that was just stupid. It's over the top. He should not do that. He's been relegated before. He's been kicked out of the Tour de France for throwing elbows. You just can't get away with that. He should know that by now. Whether or not he's getting desperate because, he knows his sprinting isn't as strong as the other guys, I totally agree with it. I mean, I was writing the notes for our show before we found out that Sagan was relegated. I already called that. There's no room for it in today's sport. I mean, these guys are wearing Lycra. This isn't football or hockey where the guys are wearing all these pads. There's no padding. And they've got to make sure the races are safe, and Sagan is not following the code.
There needs to be a higher priority on safety in the bunch than there traditionally has been and than there is now. But I don't know, it's such a fine line. When I was watching the sprint, I was like, that was a big hit, but everything's okay, and it isn't necessarily something that's completely out of the ordinary. It's certainly very much something I would expect from Sagan, and I think that a lot of riders just know, Peter Sagan, he's going to push you around, he's going to go where he wants to go, because that's kind of his attitude.
That doesn't make it right. That doesn't make it right, Michael. Right? And one of the only reasons there wasn't a crash was because Wout van Aert is an ex-cyclocross racer and knows how to take a hit. That's what cyclocross racing is. It's argy-bargy all the time. And he was able to absorb the hit and keep on moving, without overreacting. And if that had been Julian Alaphilippe or Mark Cavendish, there would have been a crash.
Quite possibly. What I want to get at, though, is that, these aren't isolated incidences. Have you ever seen Sam Bennett in a messy sprint? that guy is more of a gorilla than Peter Sagan is. If he wants to go somewhere, I have seen him, like, he looks like he's a rugby player on a bike when he is trying to get somewhere. What I'm saying is, like, it's part of the game, and I think that it is very much the right call that Sagan did get relegated because it was so blatant. But it happens a lot. And then where do you draw the line? I'm just kind of like going down a rabbit hole here, but you see Caleb Ewan. We need to get to Caleb Ewan because he came out of absolutely nowhere. He had to shoot across the road. He went from the right-hand side of the road to the left to come around all these guys. The finishing kick, just the acceleration that Caleb Ewan has is mind-blowing. They don't call him the pocket rocket for no reason, but Caleb Ewan, he didn't hold his line. He shot through the peloton.
Yeah, but he didn't take anyone out. He
He
didn't cross in front of somebody and take out someone's wheel. He didn't cause someone else to deviate from their line. So that's
true, but there's so many riders around. Like these people, they dart around, and okay, fair enough. Caleb Ewan, he didn't make any contact with anyone. It was a beautiful sprint. Peter Sagan and Wout van Aert, they had words after the race. We saw, as I said, Wout van Aert, he did not seem very phased during the sprint, but after he crossed the line, you could tell that he's like, this guy, who does he think he is? And that's kind of the crux of this with Peter Sagan. He had the carte blanche in the peloton for a lot of years, 3-time world champion. You don't mess with him, but now there are guys who are riding better than him, stronger than him, and Wout van Aert, he's
younger than
the World Tour peloton, younger than him, amazing, doing bigger things, and Wout van Aert's like, I don't have to take this. Are you kidding me? Who does this guy think he is? And so Wout van Aert gave Peter Sagan the finger going over the line, and there are reports that the two of them did not stop the confrontation there.
Well, and I don't blame Wout van Aert for being upset. Totally do not. It could have been a lot worse than it was, and so I'm sure the the directors from Jumbo protested to the UCI commissaires right away. All you have to do is look at the video from a couple different angles, and it was obvious.